What if I told you the ending of Thrones was written 10,000 years before Jon Snow was even born? Most people watch these shows as separate stories, a prequel here, a sequel there, but they're missing the bigger picture. From the first face carved into a tree to the moment of Valyria and steel dagger found the Night King's heart. Every single second of this history was a domino falling toward a single, terrifying night. This isn't just a list of kings, this is the 12,000-year conspiracy that connects everything. The wall has stood for 8,000 years. That is 8 millennia of biting winters, 8 millennia of silent vigil, and 8 millennia of watching for a nightmare that most of the world dismissed as a myth centuries ago. Then, in a single night, it falls. But here is the truth, the story of that wall, the reason it was built, in the secret history of the family that spent 300 years preparing for its fall doesn't begin with Ned Stark losing his head. It doesn't even start with Aegon the Conqueror. It starts 12,000 years ago. Every event in Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and now A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is part of one continuous, interwoven tapestry. By the end of this, you're going to understand how a dagger forged before the Doom of Valyria ended up in the hands of Arya's Ark, and why that was never a coincidence. 12,000 years before Robert Barr had Eon sat on the Iron Throne, Westeros was not a human realm. It belonged to the children of the forest, small, magical beings who worshipped the old gods and the giants. Then the first men arrived. They crossed from SOS via a bridge called the Arm of Dorne. They brought bronze, horses, and a total disregard for the sacred weirwood trees. As the trees fell, worry erupted. In desperation, the children's green seers gathered and performed a ritual so powerful it shattered the Arm of Dorne into the islands we now call the Stepstones. But it wasn't enough. The first men were already here. Eventually, both sides signed a pact on the Isle of Faces. This began the age of heroes, a 4,000-year golden age that gave rise to legendary figures like Bran the Builder and Lan the Clever. 8,000 years ago, paradise ended. The long night arrived, a winter that lasted a generation. From the lands of always winter came the White Walkers, raising the dead to fight for them. The first men and the children of the forest united to push them back, but they knew the threat was only delayed. Bran the Builder raised the wall, 300 miles of ice and ancient magic. He founded house stark to guard the realms of men, and for 8,000 years they waited. While Westeros recovered, shepherds in SOS discovered dragons in the 14 flames. They built the Valyrian Freehold, a civilization of magic and steel that dominated the world for 5,000 years. But in 102 BC, the Doom of Valyria occurred. The volcanoes erupted, and the peninsula was swallowed by the sea. Only the Targaryen survived, because a young girl named Dennis the Dreamer saw the fire coming 12 years before it happened. Aegon the Conqueror didn't take Westeros out of simple ambition. He had a prophetic dream called the Song of Ice and Fire. He saw a darkness marching from the north and believed only a united Westeros under it, Targaryen, could survive. He even had this prophecy inscribed on a Valyria and steel dagger. Aegon forced the Iron Throne, but his descendants almost destroyed it. The Dance of the Dragons was a catastrophic civil war between Rhaenyra and Daegon II. It saw dragon fight dragon in the skies until, in 130 A.C., a mob stormed the dragon pit and killed 5 dragons in a single night. By 153 A.C., the dragons were extinct, and the Targaryens were left vulnerable. This is where a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms begins. King Aegon the Unworthy was a corrupt disaster who, on his deathbed, legitimized all his illegitimate children. This created the Great Bastards and sparked 70 years of Blackfyre Rebellions. One of these bastards was Brynden Rivers, known as Bloodraven, a sorcerer and spymaster who supposedly had 1,000 eyes in one. In this era, a hedge knight named Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire raid the future king. Aegon the Fifth wandered a realm without dragons. Aegon the Sixth eventually died at Summerhall, trying to bring dragons back to life with wildfire. On that same night, Rhaegar Targaryen was born. Rhaegar became obsessed with the prophecy of the prince that was promised, which led him to Lyanna Stark and eventually to the birth of Jon Snow. Everything connects. Bloodraven, the spy master, became the three-eyed raven, waiting for Bran Stark. Daenerys birthed dragons where Summer Hall failed, and the Night King finally breached the wall. When Arya Stark used that ancient Valyria and Dagger to strike the final blow, she was fulfilling a 300-year-old Targaryen dream. The prophecy said only the prince's blood could save the world. Jon Snow's lineage brought the world together, and the weapon Aegon inscribed with his dream was the one that ended the nightmare. Every story in this universe is the same story. The struggle between life and death. The long night came twice, humanity survived twice. As we look back at the history, we realize the White Walkers weren't just a legend, they were the reason for everything.